Caroline Richardson has played competitive paintball in the Sky Dome, galloped million-dollar racehorses for a living, and she met her husband when he sold her a Ford Mustang during a snowstorm. Well, she lives in Toronto, so what do you expect? Sorry, in Ontario, so what do you expect? Her debut novel, Out of His League, rocketed to over 1 million reads on Wattpad in less than a year after winning a Watty Award and after she joined the Page Series program in 2019. Right now, working on her next bestseller, Caroline backcountry camps, hikes, and cross-country skis with her family. She lives in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, with her husband and her 2 children. And here she is now.
Hello.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Whoop, did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, there we
go. I pushed the wrong button.
It happens.
Yeah, okay, just let me adjust this camera just a little bit. I forgot that I was cutting off my head. But here we go. How's that look?
Perfect. As always.
I certainly do try. Okay, so we're talking about your novel today, Out of His League, which is coming from WattpadBooks and is being released on April
5th.
April 5th. You must be excited about this.
I am excited. I am nervous. I'm terrified. I'm everything all at once. But yes, very excited. It's coming quite quickly, less than a month now. And we're starting to ramp up promo, so it's starting to feel real.
You recently got copies of the books in your hand.
Mm-hmm. They're right there.
Yeah. I don't have a copy yet, so I can't, do a pull and a reveal. So,
I can do that.
Give. I want one.
Here you go. It's available for pre-order now, so anybody can pre-order it off Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Indigo here in Canada. And the shipping date on Amazon is stating as you will receive it on the 5th. They actually have the same day ship on Amazon. So not sure about Barnes & Noble and Indigo, but for sure if you order it on Amazon, you'll get it on the 5th.
Amazing. Okay, well, you want to tell us a little bit about the book, or should I read the synopsis?
Oh, read the synopsis. I love listening to your voice, so do it.
Okay, well, fine. Here it goes. Hold it up. Hold it so you can see it.
Yes. Here we go.
Forget your coffee. Out of His League. Gretchen Harper has always been practical, dependable, solid, and predictable. She's never taken risks, and she's especially never bought coffee for gorgeous professional athletes in airports. That is, until she meets her favorite baseball player on the worst day of his career. Being sent to the minor league is just the first of Joshua Malvern's many worries. He's got an injury that won't heal, and his entire career and future are on the line. When a beautiful woman offers him coffee, that simple kindness is exactly what he needs to lift him out of his funk. He asks her to join him in first class, not expecting to end up joining her in bed. What starts as a one-night stand ends up holding a promise for so much more. And while stepping out of her comfort zone has never been Gretchen's style, for a chance at true love, she'll have to decide whether she'll swing for the fences, even if it means striking out. Okay, well, I actually read the first chapter of this book on the podcast. And you can actually go and check that out. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. So make sure to go listen. But my big question here is how much different is it, the Wattpad version from the printed version?
Well, we kept the essence of the story the same. As with any story that goes from the Wattpad platform to a printed book, there is a lot of changes that happen in how the story flows. And some of the ways the story is told. So in a book, you get a lot more character exploration. You get deeper into the settings. You get deeper into the scenes. So we added a lot of character growth. We added a lot more into the book, because with serial fiction, you tend to end your chapters on cliffhangers. You can leave scenes out, and it still meets the requirements of a serial fiction because you're going from episode to episode. So for the book, it flows more. So we added content. We changed some storylines to be a little bit more palatable for a traditional romance novel in print form. And I, of course, went through and did an edit of my writing. The writers, the editors at Wattpad helped me really improve and tighten up the writing and make it better, because this was a book I've written a few years before it actually started to gain traction on Wattpad. So my writing has changed and gotten better and improved. So we were able to do that as well in the book. So the first chapter that you read, it's fairly intact because it's the meet cute. There was already a lot of editing that went into that first chapter before I even posted it. So it's fairly intact in the book, just with some tweaks and how the wording is and how tight the writing is, but it's pretty much the same.
How much editing do you actually have to do on the first chapter? 'Cause I know personally, I always rewrite my first chapter after I've finished the rest of the book.
I don't tend to. I will go back and I will change things in the first chapter if I change plot points later on in the book as I'm writing it. I am the type of writer who I will go back 2 or 3 chapters in a book and that I'm writing, and I'll read it before I continue writing so that I can get back into the headspace of the characters and back into the setting and the plot, kind of like diving in or putting on a sweater before you know, so you're not cold. I didn't do a lot of rewriting on the first chapter, I'll be honest. I did tweaks, so just to make sure that it stayed consistent with the plot and the timeline. More than anything.
Come on. Be more human. Make some mistakes, darn it. I know. Okay, so fine. We have different, everyone has different writing style. Exactly. I know that I just had to rewrite mine like 6 times. So I was kind of hoping you were in the same boat. But okay, fine. Your experience with Wattpad has been a really positive experience. And you're always upbeat and always so positive about your experience. Have you enjoyed the entire process working with Page Stories and then with WattpadBooks?
Oh God, yeah. So first off, I mean, given the opportunity to take something that I've written and monetize it, to make money from it, that's huge. So there was already a positive aspect to the interactions I had with Wattpad in that aspect. One of the things that I think Wattpad does incredibly well is they take people who have never taken their writing past the hobby phase, and they help them through the process of realizing its potential when they find that story that they want to invest in. For me, winning the Wattie was incredible in itself. That was like, okay, if nothing else ever happens, I'll win something with some of my writing, like, woo. And then when they approached me to go into paid, I was like, sure, why not? Let's make a bit of money with this. Can't hurt. It's all gravy, right? And it's part of the policy I have of embracing new things. Say yes. When you can say yes, enthusiastically. And they walked me through every step in the process. There was always somebody there to answer my questions when I asked. The people that were shepherding me through the process of getting out of his league into paid, they were very communicative. Like, I've had an incredible experience communicating with Wattpad. It's never been, there's been a couple of times when I'm like, oh, I haven't heard anything, but all you have to do is reach out, and they come back and say, yes, let's do this. So for that, like, there's always been somebody there to hold my hand, basically, and say, we know you're new at this, so here's the steps we have to go through. We know that you've never done this before, so here's what we're going to do. And it was always clearly laid out. And that's why it's been so positive. Because they've never left me in the lurch. And even when I felt like there was, oh, we're not communicating very well, all I had to do was reach out, because in essence, you have to be your own advocate. And when you reach out and you ask, you get, right? So it's a two-way street, but Wattpad's been incredibly supportive in that way.
Well, I always say, if you ask, those who ask get. Those that don't ask, well. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I know that you've so a couple years ago when you joined the paid program, that was when I first met you, and I know you have the whole Western heat going on. So I designed one of your covers for you.
Yes.
Is that your first love, the Western?
It's books in my heart, because in a former life I rode horses for a living. So I taught, I trained, I rode racehorses for a little while. I wanted to become a jockey before my knees gave out. And I ran my own stable for many years. And so horses are my first love. So when I can write in a setting and with a storyline that involves horses or that industry or that lifestyle, it's a book of my heart. And Western Heat and the two subsequent books, Western Connection and Western Flame, those books have come from a very, very long process of writing in that world and then finally condensing it into these books. Protecting Jess also has horses in it. For Alice with Love also has horses in it. And several other books that I have not even shown to another living person also have horses in them. So yes, I love the Western genre, not necessarily always Western. I grew up in the show jumping, dressage, and 3-day eventing world, pony club, all that fun stuff. So eventually there are going to be books that follow that world as well. But I do love writing it. It's fantastic.
Okay, so back to Out of His League for a moment. What kind of release are you looking at? I know you've been planning to come down to Toronto in April, but what's happening now?
So originally what we wanted to do was come to Toronto. The book is set partially in Toronto, partially in Las Vegas. And the Toronto team is called the Sixers. So I couldn't call them the Blue Jays, obviously.
Copyright issues, right?
You know, since the core of Toronto is the 416 area code, I call them the Sixers. And we were going to go to the season opener for the Jays this year on the 4th of April. And then on the 5th of April, I was going to go with my kids. They were coming with me and my husband too, because he's a huge baseball fan. And we were going to just kind of go around the city, and the kids were going to videotape me going to the bar that Josh is in when he gets the text from Gretchen. And we were going to go find the bagel shop she goes to. And I was going to go check out Wattpad headquarters and go, hi. And when I take over the Instagram on the release day, do all that then. That's not happening now. Because of the MLB lockout that was recently resolved, the season openers have been shifted further down in the calendar. So we can't go. So we're going to stay in Ottawa instead, unfortunately. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, I was looking forward to connecting with a couple of people in Toronto as well, you included. And it will happen again eventually. The kids love Toronto. They love visiting the CN Tower and Ripley's Aquarium. And we do plan on going to a baseball game at some point because we do love the Jays in this house. But now we're going to stay in Ottawa, and I'm going to go on a tour of Ottawa on the 5th and show people my hometown. We actually went downtown last night to Parliament Hill and went and checked out the Centennial Flame and stood in the middle of Wellington Street because there's still no vehicles allowed down there, and went, we have our downtown back, but it's a ghost town because there's nobody there now. Took the kids skating, that sort of thing. So that's what my plan is for release day, is to just kind of hang out at home, take my kids. We're going to do a tour of the city. I'll take you to my favorite ice cream shop and my favorite bagel shop and that sort of thing. So just have fun.
Okay, so what was the date again?
The 5th of April.
5th of April is going wide. It's going to be available in all bookstores. So you can actually physically walk in and pick it up.
Yes. Hopefully the bookstores have it on the 5th of April. I've noticed that, especially with a lot of new releases, it sometimes takes a couple of days to get in and on the shelf, depending on the distribution from, in Canada, it's Rain Coast. In the States, it's Macmillan. So it may be there by the Friday, but Tuesday is a traditional release day for traditionally published books. So if you can't get it at your bookstore, you can probably order it and receive it next day. And there's also the Kindle edition. It's going to be an ebook as well. So if you have a Kindle or a Kobo, or you read on Apple Books, you'll probably be able to grab it and have it instant to read on the 5th as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, reading the first chapter was definitely a lot of fun. There's some books which are a little harder to wrap around the language and the cadence of the speech and everything, but because I tend to get into the whole actor mode and do some of the of actual character voices, so that was actually a really easy read, and I still have to go back and read the rest of the book, but these first chapters, they take some time. But everyone should definitely check it out. The book is very well paced, and it's, like I said, it's enjoyable. You have a gift of for words. So
thank you.
Right. Let's see. What are you reading now?
Ooh, right now, while I'm working my way through, I don't know if you can see it. Maybe if I just up and over. That is my Wattpad shelf. And your book's on there too, Rodney. It's right at the end, if you can see it. I don't know if I can zoom in or not, but right on the very, very, very end is How Not to Vampire Season 1. So this is my Wattpad and Friends shelf. And so I'm currently working my way through this because these are the important ones for me to read. As for bigger names.
We need more photos of that shelf.
I've put photos up. I'm going to do some Instagram and TikTok stuff with it too. For bigger reads, I'm reading through Diana Gabaldon's latest. It's a heavy read because it's part of the Outlander series. It's Go Tell the Bees I'm Gone. And so I'm taking it in chunks because I love the story so much. I'm watching the series on TV, and it's a big read because it's a huge book. And I got it for Christmas from my kids, so it's this massive hardback. And I have arthritis, so I can't hold heavy books easily. That's why I have a Kindle. But they bought me the hardback to have on my shelf, which is important too. So that's what I'm reading.
Nothing quite like having a paper book in your hand.
Yes, it's heavy. With my arthritis, I can type, I can move, but holding my hands still for a certain amount of time, it hurts. So little books like this are great because they're light, they're paperback, they're flexible. But when you get a big tome like Diana's books, which are, this big and this big, it can be more difficult. So I'm taking it in little bites.
I've self-published, and one of the very first notes that I got back after getting the copy of the book in my hand, and it was hold on, it was so I Might Be a Vampire is 9x6, and I got it in my hand and gave it to this producer friend of mine to read. And he'd been taking public transit and everything. And he came back to me and said, "This book is too big. I can't read it properly in the in the bus."
Yeah.
So he asked me to do a paperback version, and that came back and it's so much smaller and easier to hold.
Yes.
So you really don't think about those things, about how heavy things can be.
Now I plan to get the mass market paperback for Diana Gabaldon's book as well, because that's how I have the other books in the series. I all have in mass market paperback, which is the small one, right? They tend to be like this thick, but they're easier for me to hold. So once that comes out, she puts out a hardback first, then there's going to be other iterations in this size of paperback, probably with Jamie and Claire from the series on the front and things like that. And then from there, she'll put out the mass market paperback, and I'll buy that one too.
Okay, so that seems to be the standard Wattpad book size. So do you know if they're putting out a mass paperback?
The only way I would get a mass market paperback of this book is if the first printing completely sells out, and they'll make a decision at that point if they do a hardback version or if they do a mass market paperback. With romance, in general, you will see mass market paperback before a hardback. Especially for newer authors like myself. If it's somebody like Nora Roberts or Daniel Steele or anybody that's huge in romance, they might get a hardback as well. Hardbacks are more expensive to produce, obviously, and they're more expensive to buy. And romance readers are consumers. They don't cherry pick books 1 or 2 or 3. They're huge consumers. That's why you see a lot more ebooks being sold in the romance genre than any other genre, because that Kindle can hold 100 books. Romance writers will consume. That's why Harlequin does so well. They are small books, 50K. You can easily read them in a day or on the weekend at the beach, which was the goal of this book. It's not a long read. It's not a heavy read. There's not tons of dark angst in it, because it's meant for you to sit down for a weekend and have a light read and come away from the end with that happily ever after joy and go, and be refreshed. A palate cleanser, so to speak.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Tamara just listed your Wattpad.
Thanks.
Link.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tamara, and there's a pre-order link as well.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I feel like I have a team behind me.
You do.
Well, you have the support of the community. Your fellow writers. This is very, very important. So, how important do you say is building author relationships?
Oh God, it's so important. One of the things I tell new writers, because I get asked the question a lot of, give me advice. What advice would you give a new writer? And one of the most important, well, two most important things are write for you and write for joy. So just keep writing. And two is find your tribe. We are not islands. We cannot write in silence in a vacuum. One, your writing will become stale. And two, you need that fellowship for inspiration and encouragement. There's been times when I am so discouraged with my writing and it feels flat and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm writing like a, blah. And I come online to my writing group, my writing tribe, which you're included in. And I go, and all of a sudden it's there. It's that support. It's the, well, why don't you think about it this way? Or it's a, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Sometimes you need a kick in the pats. Sometimes you need a pat on the back. So it's so important to have that community, and it's hard to find. It's not easy to find your tribe. And I've gone through several iterations of trying to find people to have that community with, and it's been a false start. And so finding that community takes time, but when you find it, hang on and interact and be a big part of that community, and it will reap dividends for you. And I mean, as you know, the community that we have, it's been an amazing friendship that's developed with this group as well. Like, I don't know if I go a day without talking to several of you, right? So yep. It's so important, so important.
I think it was like one of the best things that ever happened. The different personalities that were available that actually came into the Wattpad Page Stories program and talked on Discord. It was just fast friendships because we were all there sharing a common goal, and no one was there to put anybody down or anything. It was all about how can we support each other.
Yes.
And that's I think they were so inspired by that they actually expanded it to more of the Wattpad stars and writers, and we built a bigger community through that.
Yeah, and we're lucky that we were given that space to create that community. One of the questions I do get asked by people is, where do I find these writer communities? Because it's difficult to find. We're on Discord, so we have a server on Discord. There's plenty of different, if you search online for writers groups on Discord, you'll find several that are listed on websites. Facebook has several writers groups. I belong to Canada Writes, which is a group that's actually run by the CBC Corporation. And it's writers from all over Canada, and they come in and they gripe and they complain and they share their writing, they share their successes, they share their rejection letters. It's a great community. And you can find a lot of communities on Facebook. I'm sure there's even communities on Twitter and Instagram that develop. But those are the two places that I have found the most easy to find that community is Facebook and Discord, for sure.
Amazing. Okay. Are you reading any books on Wattpad right now? Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to, perhaps?
Well, I am currently reading Tamara Lush's new book that she's posting called The Awakening. It's a foray into the vampire genre, and I'm very much enjoying it. It's a slow burn. She's teasing us with little snippets. I love it. And so it's a really neat book, and it's in Tamara's traditional style, which I really enjoy reading. So that's the one that I'm currently reading. I tend not to read in my genre when I'm deep into my first draft, because I find that if I read too much in the romance genre or on Wattpad in the romance genre, it'll affect my voice, because I'm still figuring that out. I think I don't know of any writer that has their voice completely figured out, even if they've been writing for 30 years. So I tend to take my reading when I've finished a draft. So between books, I'll voraciously read. I am currently reading off of Wattpad. It's somebody sent me an ebook just privately that's in a fantasy genre. It's like a fantasy but alternate universe genre. So I'll read fantasy, I'll read science fiction, I'll read a lot of nonfiction when I'm writing, and when I'm between my books, I will read every romance I can get my hands on. And
yeah, I don't think a lot of young writers really understand how important reading is to the process.
Mhm.
So like I know that that whenever I read, I go and I can find some of my old favorites. I pick up Stephen King or Terry Pratchett. I
Mhm.
get excited about writing again. They start forming these little explosions of thoughts, these little ideas
Yes.
that really get me going. And I've also found that same experience with Lindsay. Oh my God, Lindsay Clark on Wattpad. She's Little Cinnamon, where I will go and start reading her books, and all of a sudden, those sparks come, and it just makes me want to go and write
Yeah.
again. So then I don't finish reading the chapter. I go off
That's
to write something.
that's Nora Roberts for me. I'll pick up a Nora Roberts book and halfway through I'll put it down because I have an idea. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, you can't stop it. Inspiration, or just a different way of thinking, just hits you when it hits you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you participated in a panel for Writers Connect. You have about 5 minutes left, so I think we should probably take some questions right now.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
is there any other advice you can offer?
Advice I can offer. I mean, it depends on the context. Um, if for somebody starting out on Wattpad, I get asked that question a lot too. Is like, how do you get reads? Oh my God, how did you get noticed? Luck. um,
Yes.
One of the things that I say is be consistent on the platform. Post consistently, post clean content. So make sure it's edited, make sure it looks good. Um, I really am a proponent for outlining or at least sort of understanding where your story is going. That way, when you write, your consistency will show. Interact with your readers. Reply to their comments. Put like it's harder now that we don't have the news feed, but interact with them, answer comments, put out little announcements about when your chapters go up, and use social media to do that as well. So I post on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and now TikTok. I'm so busy. All of my writer stuff, and that will bring people in. But just being consistent on the platform, and write the story that you want to read. Write the story that brings you joy. Write the story that you want to read, and that will show through when you're writing. And just have fun with it, because we're all on Wattpad to write because we love writing. We love the process of painting with words, and that is what we need to remember as we write. And if you do that, you will eventually find an opportunity, and if you work hard, when that opportunity hits, you can say yes.
Well, that's what they say. Most of this process is about the preparation. It's 90% preparation, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's preparation to be successful, so that when the opportunity does come.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any last words for us? What's next for you?
What's next for me is finishing Western Flame, which is book 3 of the West Brothers trilogy. I'm about halfway through that book now, posting it. The book's finished. I've written it. I'm just posting it weekly on Wattpad at the moment. I've also started drafting the follow-up to Out of His League, which is currently titled In Over His Head. And it's about Kevin and Charla, which is the secondary couple that are in Out of His League. And he's an English earl and she's a sommelier, just like Gretchen. And it's about their relationship because she works for him. And it's the whole, royalty, will they, won't they? She doesn't feel good enough for him. He's going to be my golden retriever hero. So he's really sweet. He's really wonderful. He's like the perfect guy, except for the fact that he's royalty adjacent and she's a, rural girl from Ontario. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. They're currently on a yacht in the Amalfi Coast, if I can give a teaser. So I'm learning a lot about yachts at the moment.
All right.
So
I
that's
have
what
a
I'm
friend who
working on
talks
right
to you
now.
all about yachts.
Yeah, it's incredible. So that's what I'm working on right now, and I'm hoping to start posting that book once I'm finished posting Western Flame. And of course, I've got 16 other ideas in the outlining phase, and I just came up with another idea the other night and just wrote a synopsis and threw it in my ideas folder. And if I get the time, I might write it this summer so that it's ready for fall, because it's kind of a fall-themed Harlequin type romance. So we'll see. We'll see if I get time.
Okay, well, you'll be joining us again for the Plotters versus Pantsers panel.
Yes,
That was supposed to be in May, but we're still playing with the date.
of
But
course.
that's going to be coming up, and it's going to have Mason C, Van Carly, Jane Peden, Henry Scott, Sabrina Blackberry, and Caroline Richardson. So that's going to be an excellent
We're gonna have fun.
panel where we really discuss the intricacies of of plotting versus pantsing.
Mm-hmm.
So look out for that. The next one is going to be on April the 9th, and it's the Watties experience. We'll be confirming the names for that, but so far we have T.L. Bodine, Joey Blessing, Alex Hicks, and a couple more Watties winners to join us. Writers Connect is hosting these panels with Wattpad writers. We're trying to just bring people into community and just let them know where they can find other like-minded people like yourself. So keep an eye out on our Instagram, our social media, and you can also check out our book on our Wattpad profile. So yeah, that's pretty much what's coming out. Oh, right. The next big thing around the Watties experience, since we are declaring April to be Watties month, is we're doing the Watties boot camp. Morgan Ryder is hosting that. She has a lot more details coming up, and we're going to have a couple of interviews around that. So yeah, so I don't think you're one of our mentors.
No, it's in April. It's right around when my book releases, and I know that it's going to be one of those things where I will have bitten off too much if I try to take that on as well as everything else going on in April. Yeah, so
well,
I had to bow out of that.
It's important to know when you're overtaxed and don't overpromise.
Exactly.
Okay, well, keep an eye out for the boot camp and the Watties Experience panel on April 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Today we've been speaking with Caroline Richardson and about her book, Out of His League, which is available on April 5th in bookstores everywhere. I have been your host, Rodney V. Smith, and thank you so much for joining us. All right, bye.
Bye.